Welcome back to the Two Blues podcast and to a brand new year, 2025. Happy New Year to every single one of our subscribers. We have just over the Christmas period hit 2,000 subs. Appreciate
On
every
Christmas
single
Day,
person that
on
subscribed
Christmas
to
Day, by
us.
the way.
On Christmas Day, we hit 2K subs. We did. We are now still pushing that. We're still pushing the monetization. So continue to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. But yeah, guys, appreciate everybody. Hope everybody had a blessed Christmas, New Year, and we are back. New Year's Day live stream. Obviously, last night, New Year's Eve, a little bit techie. So we're going to be bringing you our weekly roundup. Our Two Blues Tuesday has been postponed to Two Blues Wednesday, but we're here, man. Good to get a good hour in before the Arsenal Brentford game at 5:30. Hopefully, I mean, I haven't seen the team news. Last I heard, there was a bug going around the Arsenal team. So, fingers crossed, some more points dropped in the title race. But that is the topic of today's Two Blues roundup. Is the title race over after a unbelievable title charge from Chelsea in the first half of the season? 1 point in the last 3 games, Charms. Everton, Fulham, Ipswich, 3 teams we should be beating and 3 performances that we are trying to forget as soon as possible. What has happened? First off, what has happened to this Chelsea side? Because we were flying a month ago.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It seems to be very overnight. It doesn't seem to be like one thing. We're not stuck with a big injury. Everyone can look at the Man City fall off and link it to when Rodri was out, and just kind of you can make the pins and the analysis. You can do the same with Newcastle and certain times when they've not looked good and not having certain players. But we're fully fit. We look fine. And in fact, up until we get a point out of the Everton game, looks shaky. We go into the Fulham game, we're 1-0 up, we score a second, he gets VAR'd off, but we look like we're in control of the game. And we were both there. There was this overwhelming sense of something is about to happen. You could feel it in the 70th minute, 75th minute, when it was 5 on 5, like 5 centre backs, KG, Ratley. I was like, this isn't what we've been playing like all season. We go 1-0 up and we're still on the aggression, we're just playing sensible, but it seemed cagey. It seemed very like we were a bit worried to concede, and it was almost like we had known of City had just dropped their points, and it seemed like a really good time to go in there and get more points and close that gap. And it almost feels like that became the weight itself, was that expectation that this is a bit of lower competition compared to the teams we've been beating. And Fulham haven't looked amazing, although I think they've got a really good team. I thought that they were breakable. I thought that they were a beatable team, but it was just the small things. It was watching us take a free kick and looking at the wall that they had and how big they looked. And we just looked like we weren't ready to break that down. And it seemed the same thing again against Ipswich. It seemed like we were so ready to go in there and beat them at home, and we looked so good on the road that we didn't really try and beat them because we just expected it to happen naturally. And that's what happened. You go 1-0 down to a stupid penalty, and then all of a sudden we can't bag, and they've scored a second goal based on one of our mistakes. And you start looking at it and going, shit, we're being outplayed here. We're losing this game of football. And it's 2 or 3 times in a row now, and it's getting a little bit frustrating. But obviously, the team has said it themselves. The manager said it themselves. We're not in a title race. I seem to believe that we were. You seem to believe that we were. But the club knew what time it was. But it almost felt like as soon as we started sprinkling a bit of confidence, that we were shown why that shouldn't have been the case. So maybe Enzo Maresca was right. We haven't been in a title race this whole time. But maybe we should have just stayed a little bit humble, more humble for a little bit longer, and see if we could slim that gap. But yeah, I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of Chelsea fans kind of instant reaction to the first 2 games where we dropped points in Fulham and Everton. Obviously, just kind of 1 or 2 subs made in either of those games. It was Jackson for Nkunku, and then I think there was 1 more sub in one of the other games, but 3 subs in 2 games. And a lot of the people were saying, "Oh, what's happened to Maresca? The tactical geniuses, the tweaks, the in-game changes that we're used to." He rung the changes against Ipswich, and although we were 2-0 down at the point, I'm pretty sure he used at least 4 out of his 5 subs, but I'm pretty sure he used all 5 subs. Do you think it's a case of, in the last month or so, is it the players? Is it the manager? Because Enzo Maresca's come out in the press conference and said, these players are tired. They've played a lot. they're playing one game a week, and these teams are switching, and there are a few constants in the team, and we have had a few injury concerns. But in the grand scheme of things, we still have more than enough players to be able to tie over this squad and to not be tired. So do you think it comes down more to the players and their performance, or a drop-off in the manager in the last month?
No, I think I don't think that the blaming the fitness is necessarily a fair way to put it. I mean, I don't know. I'm not in there. I'm not the one training them and coaching them as Enzo is. So I have to take his word as bond. Maybe they are feeling it, but why would they? I mean, we're pretty much the only club that's played 2 tournaments with 2 different teams. I can't see too many links. I mean, I see Jorgensen playing against Ipswich, but he shouldn't exactly be leggy. You know what I mean? Nkunku coming on, they're not even playing 90 minutes. I don't know. I think that it's a poor excuse. I can't tell you exactly what it is once again, but I don't know if it's Enzo, if it is the players and it is the fitness, or if it is just the Christmas period and it's been a little bit more of a testy time. You never know what people have been going through. Maybe the Mykhailo Mudryk situation's been a little bit plaguing over the dressing room. I couldn't tell you, but I think that there is a notable change in want and determination. I hope that that's not from Enzo changing tactics, when we've been so successful, but it just feels a little bit less ruthless. Nicholas Jackson's been mute in the last few games. I feel like he's not been figured out, but I feel like he's finding it a harder time to break down defenders and really chasing at them. And that, those little mistakes aren't he's not really capitalizing on them how he was. He would be that guy running in and charging at goalkeepers and making them pass it short when they don't have to. And we saw that a little bit against Fulham, but it just didn't seem that same dog, that same tenacity. It was just in sparing moments. So I just think that there's an overall hunger that's maybe it almost feels like we've had a bit too much on the off the plate with how successful we've been, and we don't have that bad loss that we need to have a bounce back win for. It almost feels like with all these wins in a row, we get a full sense of security, especially when you beat a Panathinaikos and you look great doing it, and then you beat another small European team and you look great doing it, and you beat Shamrock Rovers and you look great doing it. And it's hard to go into the Prem, and it's a hard team, so you're going to play your hard lineup. But when you're playing a Panathinaikos or a Shamrock and you smash them, and then you come back into the Premier League and you got an Ipswich, you almost treat it the same. But Ipswich is a different level, and I will say that wholeheartedly. It's substantially better than anyone in the Europa Conference League. So maybe it is just a little bit rose-tinted glasses and not taking these lower teams as seriously, especially teams in the drop or teams like Fulham, who we have a history of beating at home. So yeah, I think it just comes down to complacency. I think it's the best way to put it, mate.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think in terms of the individuals, I mean, we were kind of both talking, and along with the rest of the Chelsea fan base, we were both talking about these players taking their opportunity in the Conference League. We have seen players like Nkunku, João Felix just kind of drop off, and I don't know whether it is that they've become disillusioned. They feel like they are, bound to this B team no matter how well they play. I don't really know what it is, but it does feel like a little bit of a lack of hunger. And I was kind of discussing the drop off and kind of just internal kind of train of thought, just kind of running through the players that I thought have been significantly worse than, not necessarily last season, but have dropped off in the last few weeks. And one of the players that I've highlighted, and a lot of Chelsea fans I think have highlighted this season as having an insane drop off, is Malo Gusto. Obviously he was Chelsea's standout player at the back last season, most consistent defender across the entire campaign. In the absence of Reece James, it finally felt like we had a stand-in, ready-to-go right back that wasn't worried about stepping up and facing the best wingers. He was able to quieten the best wingers in the Premier League and arguably the world last season. What has happened to Malo Gusto this year? Because we all know that he doesn't look particularly comfortable in the inverted role, but he also doesn't seem to have that same tenacity about him in defence, that same willingness and hunger to go forward. I mean, obviously his role has been slightly restricted in this Enzo Maresca formation, but realistically, the performance should still be there. The level of performance that we've seen last season has dropped off massively this year.
Yeah, no, I think that it's the exact same thing of why Cucurella's had a massive uptick in performances. I think it just comes down to how Enzo likes to structure his defence particularly and his fullbacks particularly. I think the best way of putting it is caged aggression. And you look at a player like Cucurella, and he's really good at caging that aggression and knowing when to pop it and going down the line and being aggressive, but he always finds himself back in position on the transition. And I feel like that's where Malo Gusto, it's almost like he doesn't want to make that burst up because he doesn't know if he's going to be able to get back as he's expected to. And last season, I felt like Poch was a bit happier to kind of be a bit more creative going down those attack defensive flanks. And Malo Gusto, a player like that, was able to have a bit more of a quicker tread going up and a slower tread going back. And I think that he knows that Maresca's not a fan of that, and he knows that he will just get replaced. So he's trying to play in this system the way that he's being told to, but I don't think it's really clicking. And that I think that it's the exact same tactics that have been instilled in Cucurella, which have not only clicked, but he's flourished under this new criteria of just trying to be a little bit more structured, if you will. Instead of that sort of Spursy way of attacking that we were last season under Poch. That's what it is for me. I think that, Renato Vega, he's able to play it well, but I think the inexperience really kind of draws him back, and it ends up all being on Malo Gusto's shoulders. And he's one of the only players that positionally probably doesn't have a like for like. I mean, you can't. We've tried so many people in at the right back. I mean, we've tried what? Badiashile, Disasi. We've tried pretty much all of our centre backs, and none of them really have that same ability to go up and down and up and down. And that's when Malo's the best of the rest. And I think that's just what it is that's struggling. I think it's struggling to adjust to that sort of, that new tactical vision that the new manager has, and just not keeping up with once again the fitness levels. You never know. It might genuinely be something to do with the fact that he can't play all these games back to back to back.
And another player that you mentioned there, obviously, like you said, we've been shoehorning players into the right side of defence. For me, it's one of those where Disasi's getting minutes where Achimpong should be. Obviously, we've seen Caicedo played there before, but, that requires Lavia to be fit and available in the centre of midfield. At right back, Disasi seems to be Enzo Maresca's go-to option. A lot of people have been, saying, get him out. He's the first one on the chopping board. Another big mistake against Ipswich.
No, I'm pointing at me, man.
Can you hear me?
No, I'm just pointing at me. I'm just saying me. I've been saying that, but get rid.
Oh, my bad. I thought you were saying you couldn't hear. I thought you were saying
no.
No. my bad. But anyway, Disasi, big point of conversation in the last couple of weeks, and bear with us. We're going to try something new right now on the production value. Boom. Oh, that looks shit. Right, get that off. Right. Thoughts on Disasi as the in the transfer window? Obviously, January transfer window open today. My short out is going to be about 3 players that I think will leave Chelsea this transfer window. But Axel Disasi, what's your thoughts on him at the moment? Is he going to leave? Do we need to get him out and get a different centre back in January?
I'll put it like this, yeah. If by some grace of God we can take Badiashile and Disasi, line them back to back, cover them in duct tape, pick them up, put a Spanish stamp on them, and swing them over and take Ronald Araujo instead, yeah? I will be over the moon. We need a young centre-back who's got high-level experience, because we keep going for young, big, strong, fast, mind the quota, centre-backs. But, man, we need a young, experienced player. I agree. Wes, I agree. He says Disasi should not even be in the squad. We got 44 players on the books. He's 42 for me right now. KDH is 44th, enough to pop in Super Soldier Serum. McCullum Mudryk 43, but Disasi right next to him in the bottom of the pile, and he's actually not done anything worth hating on. He's just shit at football. So I don't know why he's been rotated so often in my club. But I don't like him there, and I think that a lot of people are going to say things like, I think we should send him on a loan to a solid side and make sure that we've made the right decision before we go on a sale, because he is young, he's got all the physical, but I've seen too many mistakes out of him. He's got 2 left feet, well, 2 right feet in his case, and he can't pass, can't distribute. The only thing he can do is get in a challenge, and most of the time it's clean. I mean, now and then it's not. I don't know. I'm just getting a bit sick of Axel Disasi, mate, and I think that January time. If we could, well, now, considering the transfer window's over, shout out Big Ben. Started. Yeah, man, I think that it's time to start looking for a replacement and see if we can get him on the chop, personally.
Who else do you think is going to be? I mean, you mentioned KDH there. I think he's a potentially someone that, you know, might be looking for moves. There was report of unrest. Maresca said that he can't guarantee anybody will stay. Who else do you think is going to be on the chopping block in January?
Yeah, it's difficult. I think that obviously, as I said, Kennedy Dewsbury Hall. I think it's the Badia Shield situation is hard because he would need an immediate replacement. Obviously, he is a bit more of a stalwart version of Disasi, but I think Disasi probably Badia Shield's got to go. Mikhailo Mudryk, you know how I feel about that. I reckon it's probably time for him. I'm just trying to think. There's just so many players to list off. All the young kids keep the lot of them. I don't want us to see no bids in for Achimpong getting considered. I don't want to see no Tyreek George, nothing get considered. I want to see all of those kids safe. And if anything, loaned. But that's it. Up top, we probably got a couple. Realistically, Jacko can stay. I mean, listen, I'll say it, mate. I've never really been a massive Nkunku fan. Like, never really have been the guy singing his praise. And realistically, there is a lump sum of money attached to his name. And we've got Joao Felix, we've got Jadon Sancho, we've got players who can fit his role. I don't see how he fits into this squad outside of Europe. I think that if we get offered 50, 60 million for Nkunku, we should take it. That's me. I don't know. That might be a bit more of a hotter take, a bit more of a rogue one. But I just think that with everything going on, with the amount of players that we've got, I want us to keep Sancho on a permanent, which will be another sale that comes in next summer. All the other players in between them. Neto, I like. He's had a couple of stinkers recently, but I like his utility. I like the way he plays. I think he's very aggressive and he's a natural goal scorer. I like Jackson, obviously Palmer, so no question. But then there's like the Chukwuemeka's, which I'd probably keep. You know what I mean? There's probably those players. No matter where I'd probably keep, but I'd probably get rid of Nkunku if I had to pick someone from the attacking contingent.
I think Nkunku is definitely, for me, it's not a conversation that I'd have in January. If anything, it's a summer conversation. I do hear your point because I do feel like, I feel like, and at the end of the day, it's not his fault and it's not the team's fault. It's nobody's fault, but I don't feel like he's built for this system. I feel like he's a second striker or a false 9 or a 10, which works better in a different system. And at the moment, Palmer is taking up his position in the first team. Not that is his natural position as is, but that would be his go-to, his main position that he would slide into in that first team. But this system isn't really one that he is accustomed to. And even though he's been scoring big goals in the Conference League, it is the Conference League. They're not big boy teams. And he is really more accustomed to a Bundesliga side or maybe in the League One, obviously. It's one of those where I think that in the summer, if we are serious and if we do want to go out, and if Jackson realistically, Jackson will need competition, whether it's someone to start ahead of him and to push him, or whether it's someone to start behind him and push him like Liam Delap. I think that would be a good option. But I think that would be, an out-and-out number 9 would only come in if Nkunku goes. I think there's no point in crowding him out. And at this point, we've got nice, healthy competition. They're still both competing. I was going to say they're still both scoring. They've obviously both blanked in the last couple of weeks, but they're still both competing, still, getting themselves into situations where they are having shots, having chances. When those dry up, then I can turn around and go, you know what, we need to go and spend big money on a striker like Gyökeres, like, someone like that. But at this point, I genuinely feel that Nkunku he doesn't unsettle the squad. He's a great player, a great individual, great technical footballer. And yes, while I think and I think Wes has said in the comments as well, it's unfair. It's unfair on Nkunku. He never got to play in his position. And I do feel like we kind of owe it to him to give him a run of games and to give him the spotlight. But, when you look at it in the last few weeks, when that has been the case, when that has happened, when he has started in the Prem, he really hasn't done it. He really hasn't played to the level that we expect him to as a 60 million, as our marquee signing from a year and a half ago. He really hasn't had the impact and the imprint, even though he's been putting up the numbers, hasn't had the impact that we would have hoped. But yeah, I don't know if he would be on the chopping block for me in January. Chukwuemeka, I think, unfortunately, I agree with you. I'd love to keep him, but I think he will leave. Casadei as well. There were talks of Torino today. I mean, there's been talks of Serie A clubs been interested in him for the last 6 months, and I would not be surprised if he goes. Hopefully there's a buyback clause or something on there. I think it was a buyback clause that was rumoured. Hopefully we do hold some sort of leverage in that deal, because I do think he's a quality individual.
I agree.
But that one I can understand. With Andre Santos flying for Strasbourg in League One at the moment, he is doing unbelievable things. Captaining them at 20 years old, it's a thing of beauty to see these Chelsea youngsters that we've invested in. And a lot of people have ridiculed and said, why are Chelsea spending so much money on these prospects, on these kids that could turn out to be crap? It's good to see that they're not, that they are already coming through, already showing that they are worth their weight in gold. And Andre Santos will no doubt walk straight back into this Chelsea side in the summer.
Just offer that real quick. I was going to say just real quick, but offer that. You look at our squad, and you can argue that, the place we're strongest is in between that 8 and that 6, with Lavia, Caicedo, and Enzo, and the likes of Casadei, Santos, all 5 of them quality players. We got 2 of them that we can play in a double pivot. It's going to be Caicedo and Enzo, and if one of them drops out, it's going to be Lavia. Where do you fit Andre Santos into this Chelsea team, and how would you do that? And if you did do that, who would you sell? Because you would have to.
I don't think they need to. I don't think anybody would need to be sold. I think it's definitely a case of the future. Enzo Maresca is not going to last forever. This system's not going to last forever. Even if he lasts 4 or 5 years, his game's going to adapt. Players are going to be used in different ways. Andre Santos is far more. He's a different player. He is more in the profile of Enzo Fernandez. So if you were asking me black and white out of those two who would drop out, it would be Enzo Fernandez, because Andre Santos is more of the ball carrier, more of the aggressive foot forward. He's more of a distributor, but he can also do that defensive role. He's very, physically astute, very, very good on the ball, and very disciplined as well. And I think in terms of a complete box-to-box midfielder, there's definitely room for 3 midfielders in there. I mean, my ideal midfield has always been 3. And if you look at it from a formation standpoint, I know they've got the 4 attackers, but you'd say Cole Palmer is that 3rd in that midfield. There's plenty of opportunities when Chelsea get back in the Champions League, which hopefully will be this season. There's going to be plenty of opportunities for players to be playing cup games, league games, Champions League games, Club World Cup. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for youngsters. And also, we've got to remember, nobody's going to be complaining about sitting on the bench if and when a team is winning. If and when a team is competing for 3 or 4 trophies, if we are happy, successful, scoring, nobody's going to be sitting there complaining. They're all going to be taking their paychecks, enjoying life, loving the way that the game is going for them. Because at the end of the day, they're going to have medals in their cabinets. They're going to have honours on their Wikipedia page. I don't think the only thing that we need to manage is egos. But when you look at these players like Andre Santos, who you've plucked from, all due credit to Brazil and Vasco da Gama, but we've plucked from the middle of nowhere. And, we've put this kid on 50,000 a week. We've moved his family over. We've given him a house, given him an opportunity to captain, be seen in the limelight, captain a team in League One. We've done massive thing for this kid's life. We've changed his life. And this is not going to be someone that realistically turns around and goes, and same as Caicedo, Enzo. We've spent so much money on these kids, and we've taken such a big risk on this. They know how much is riding on them. They are human, and it is. While they will always want to play, I do feel like there will be players that understand, like Romeo Lavia has in this current team at the moment. Romeo Lavia hasn't got any complaints, and I know he's got some minor injuries, but whenever he needs to step in, he's one of, if not the best players on the pitch. And that's all you can ask for from a professional player. And he knows that sometime his time will come. Sooner or later, his time will come. But for now, it's all about healthy competition. And I think Wes said something as well about buying players. We need to stop buying squad players. We need to start signing and buying players that are coming and starting. And that's where we're at now, I think. In terms of this squad build, we've got to a point where we do have a sustainable team, a good enough starting 11, And we are now looking not where we can build out in depth, not where we need backups. We are now looking, right, where can we upgrade? And, when you look at this Chelsea 11, when you look at them individually, 11 on paper, there's not that many that realistically I think we need to upgrade. But one of the areas is centre-back. And that is an area that has been discussed very, very heavily. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on Aaron Anselmino. The news this week that Fabrizio has broken that Aaron Anselmino will be joining Chelsea in January rather than in the summer. Is this a player that we should bring into the fold? I mean, I personally feel like it's too much too soon. He's not going to be an instant upgrade. It's a 19-year-old kid from Argentina. What do you think on that? Do you think he's enough to be able to hold us down, or do you think we still need to go in and buy another centre-back?
I hate it when you do that, because I was just going to say, well, the last thing we need is a 19-year-old kid coming in with no experience from Argentina. But listen, it's exactly the case. You look at what we struggle, and quality. No, we got that in abundance. When it comes to natural raw talent and youth, we got that in abundance. I mean, we were one of the youngest teams in the Prem. We might still be one of the youngest teams in the Prem. It's experience that we need. You know what I mean? You look at the difference in our back line. I mean, being a Chelsea fan since 2016, we've been screaming for a world-class centre-back to come in and lead the line. And I feel like we were screaming that until Thiago Silva won us a Champions League or captained us to a Champions League. And then we thought, listen, you know what? We've got our captain back. Like, this is someone that will die for this club. Like, remember when Thiago Silva would grab the badge and be screaming and like kissing the badge and whatnot? I'd be like, brother, you've been here 18 months. Like, you care about this club like John Terry over a decade. Like, it was amazing to see. And it was almost like we didn't quite understand how much Thiago Silva cared and how much he was giving in and how much that experience mattered until he was gone, or until the season before he had left. I didn't really feel like the quality was noticed and appreciated from early doors, because it was clear the minute that he had started marching that line, he was our defense was structured, organized. He was making sure everyone was either side of him, watching the line, and we haven't got that now. You know, you look about at our centre backs, and it's like one will drift and then the other will kind of follow to kind of match, but there's none of that. Oi, get back here, fucking Axel! What are you doing, King? Why, like the Ipswich goal, Axel? Why are you 40 yards up your own half? And why are you turning around to pass it short when you've got a centre-back, sorry, a striker right in front of you in between the two centre-backs? We can't be playing this high of a line when the rest of our line's laying right back where they should be. It's just frustrating. So I think that comes with, experience that stops that from happening. And that's why it's kind of ironic that the first player I mentioned earlier was Araujo, because he is so young. But, he's played in Barcelona. He's played at a high level. He's had Champions League experience. And he fits also all of the physical criteria we're looking for. And Anselmino, where he, regardless of talent and strength and youth and height and all of these things, which I'm pretty sure he's not even that big as far as I'm concerned, but it's not it's not the person that we need to be commanding a back line. I mean, we need an older, more experienced player. I mean, I remember when I was calling for a Rafael Varane 18 months ago. Do you remember that? It was almost like that's a rogue shout. Imagine if we had taken in Varane this season as a replacement for Thiago Silva. It would have been fine. It would have been fantastic, in my opinion. And you even look at some of the players who are going into Saudi and the Sergio Ramoses who are like playing here and there, and I'll take one of them in a heartbeat. Do you want to play for Chelsea? Do you want to captain Chelsea Football Club in the swan song of your career at 34 years old and watch us win a title when we shouldn't, or watch us win silverware when we shouldn't do, and retire when you're 36? Do it. Any one of you, do it. Come and do it. I'm sure there's a million of these old German centre-backs who we've watched for years, not Mertesacker, but like the ones that actually still have it about them. There will be someone knocking about who will happily sign on for Chelsea. I'm sure of it, but it doesn't start with anyone under the age of 28.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conflicted on that, because I do hear that, and obviously experience being the key factor. You don't get experience without playing 5-6 seasons at the top level minimum, and there are very few, 25, 26-year-olds that have done that. But yeah, two that have, obviously, as you mentioned there, Ronald Araujo from Barcelona, Alessandro Bastoni from Inter Milan. They're kind of the two centre-backs that I would have highlighted as an idea in a hypothetical, in an ideal world. That's the kind of level of of centre-back that you're looking for? Someone who still has time on their side, someone who's got longevity, can still play for 10 years, but at the same time has still been there, done that. They've got, domestic, international, national experience. They've been able to do it all, and both of those players have got that in their repertoire. I think Chelsea lack that. We've said so many times this season, defensive frailties are the main reason that Chelsea continue to concede goals to teams worse off than them in the latter stages of the game. We saw Chelsea throw the game against Fulham away, 1-0 up with 15 minutes to go. And because of lackadaisical defending, because of lack of discipline, lack of experience, naivety at the back, we lose 2-1. We drop 3 points at home. And 1 point over the last 9 games is kind of symbolic of what could have been this season. There are so many times that it could have gone wrong this season. The Spurs game could have been extremely comfortable, but they score in the last minute 4-3. All of a sudden, we're clenching again. We're struggling not to concede an equaliser. The amount of times we could have dropped points this season, but we just about scraped by the skin of our teeth. And in the last 3 games, we've that reality has been uncovered. And we've long both said that this season we will not go unscathed. It will not go without blemishes. Chelsea will have a dip in form where we drop points. No team is immune to it. And now it does seem, and kind of going back to the original point of this video, now it does seem like the only team that hasn't had that dip in form this season is Liverpool. So now, as we are obviously New Year 2025, Happy New Year as well, again, to anybody that wasn't watching earlier, that is tuning in now. Happy New Year to everyone from the Two Blues podcast. But now we are halfway through the season, 19 game weeks in, or 18, 19 games played for the majority of teams. How are you feeling? I mean, obviously it looks more and more like it's Liverpool's season, despite the changing of the guard at the start of the year. Arne Slot has got them absolutely purring.
Yeah, I mean, he's got firing. It's probably one of the greatest debut management campaigns the Premier League's ever seen, particularly so far. The fact that out in their first 18 games, the only 2 players who have had more goal contributions at that point of the season in the world has been Messi and Ronaldo for both Barcelona and Real Madrid respectively. Goes to show how Mo Salah is firing on all cylinders. And, he was supposed to be leaving for 200 million in the summer. They ended up keeping him, a lot of people, including myself. So that was a bad idea, and I didn't think it was going to go well. And they've proven me wrong, as well as everyone else. And I think we're getting to the point now where you can make a genuine argument for, is Mo Salah the greatest Liverpool player of all time? Maybe we're getting a bit on there, but I think that we can start making that argument. I feel like people aren't going to make that argument until he's retired, but when you could do the comparison with Steven Gerrard, what are you comparing? Because obviously positionally is completely different, but silverware, if he wins the Premier League, then we can start, you know what I'm saying? We can start really counting what are the important trophies, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, man, I just think that Mo Salah is in his swan song. He's in the prime of his career, right at the end of it, when people would think that the dip would begin. He looks fit, healthy, posted on Christmas. It's my guy, man. And it's scary days as a Chelsea fan, because they're just scum, aren't they? To be honest, as far as I'm concerned. But listen, it's better than the same City milking the pot, milking the cows, same old boring football ruining the game. It's good to see City fall off. It's nice to see United with a genuine threat of relegation, which would make I was having to talk about this to my best friend. He's sports.
How do you feel about that? How realistic do you think that actually is?
That's my next point. I was speaking to my best mate. He's a Portsmouth fan, and he says that he doesn't see it being reality. But if it does happen, it would be interesting. And I had to call him up on that, and I said, but if it does happen, don't you think that's a crazy thing to say about Manchester United? I mean, we've seen them in the top 4 for, I'm 26. I've seen them in the top 4 for 23 of those years. They've had 3 or 4 outlying seasons, but apart from that, they've always been a staple in the Premier League, and they, as far as I'm concerned, they always will be. But then again, so are Nottingham Forest, so are Leeds United, so were Pompey. I mean, maybe that one's a bit incomparable, but there's been plenty of teams that look like they would never go anywhere and be genuine contending for the title, have a financial trouble, or not getting the right back in, or end up having to fold, or just straight up capitulating and getting the drop. 22 points by Christmas is genuine relegation level behaviour. I mean, they're going to end up with 36 points by the end of the season. they could genuinely get dropped. And if they do, aside from being the funniest thing I've ever seen happen in the Premier League, it would be almost sad because I don't think they would bounce back straight away. And maybe that's a hot take. But yeah, I see it as possible, just very unlikely. And should it happen, I think that's it, mate. I think that's United.
January has the potential to be hilarious as well because they need to go into the transfer market. They've said they're going to do it already. They're going to sell players like Casemiro and Lindelof, who, I mean, Casemiro is pretty crucial to what they're doing at the moment. He starts virtually every week. And although he shouldn't be, although he's not the level of player that they should be aspiring to, they're not going to be able to attract the level of player that they think they are, and they have been able to in the past, even with the money that they have, that they've saved from cutting salaries and Christmas bonuses from their fucking kitchen staff.
Crazy.
But Manchester United we're potentially looking at a hilarious transfer window whereby they sell these players as quick as they can to raise funds as quick as possible, and then they can't get the targets in that they want, and they end up having an even further depleted squad. And you're right, it would be nuts for Manchester United to even think about the fact that Manchester United could be relegated. I mean, obviously, it's mathematically possible. It would take a lot, let's be honest, regardless of how badly they perform. It would take a lot for them to be relegated over the likes of Ipswich this season. There have been a lot of poor performers in the Premier League. And it would, while Manchester United are up there in terms of worst brands of football, worst styles, I just think they've got too much pedigree, too much experience, class, and obviously Ruben Amorim in terms of him as a manager compared to some of the other managers in the Premier League. I do think he is a more equipped manager. But that being said, it is that watching Manchester United is atrocious. I was watching a little bit, obviously I was watching the Chelsea game predominantly on when was it? Monday night. But Manchester United were on against Newcastle as well. And in the first half, Newcastle were tearing them apart. And this is a Newcastle side that they're good, but they haven't been up to scratch this season. Yeah. I know they're in good form at the moment, but they haven't been up to scratch this season. But they absolutely dominated Man United. And I mean, those and Tottenham, we're going to have to go back and obviously do a proper mid-season review and kind of check where we said everyone would be finishing and see how they're getting on. But Tottenham, the other team, massive drop-off. What do they do? This January is going to be big for them as well. Do they back Onge for another transfer window and give him some more time? Or do they just cut their losses? Because, I personally think this Onge facade is well and truly over.
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't think necessarily the same. I think that Onge, I think it's a very fun brand of football. I think he needs the right players to do it. But I think that, the highlight that's going around with the sort of passing play and then the Bentancur and Solanke collided, that was symbolic of their season. I think that it's fun, it's fast, it's dynamic. The team's linking up together, but when that pass comes across, there's no communication. There's no want to score as a team. There's a want to get individual accomplishments, and I that's how I feel about that side. Like Solanke as the striker, when he's queuing up to hit that, and he's got Bentancur who sees the ball rolling to him, he needs to be shouting, "That's mine, Doms." He needs to be shouting like, "I'm going to hit that," because they're just silent. The ball's rolling across, and two people are just locked in to shoot. There's no awareness, no spatial awareness, and I don't think that's necessarily Ange's fault, but it's definitely his doing. He's definitely the reason it's like that, because he's the one structuring the side. But I think that the brand of football is actually interesting. And when you watch them, there's no denying that win or lose, Spurs play fun football and they probably sell tickets, you know what I mean? And it's a good way of probably getting young fans involved. But they need, I don't know about a 9, they need a 10, in my opinion. And I know like Maddison and whatnot, but it's just the way that it's all being utilised. I don't think they have that creative spark that Heung-min Son was 3 or 4 years ago. That person who just pick it up and make danger happen. He's getting a little bit on now, and I think that once Harry Kane had left, he kind of took that mantle, but no one took the Son mantle, if you know what I mean. There was no one being able to divert him the pass. So, I don't know. I think that January is a big deal, but I think it's not necessarily about what manager they're going to recruit, but what players they recruit and where do they want to do it. I think that A 6 is also probably something that they would need to look into, something that just stops them from leaking goals. Someone just be that little bit of, that little band-aid over the wound, because they have got a little bit of a hole in their back line. So Jed Spence isn't cutting it for me either. Think he's mid. Think he's just pointless expenditure. So that's
Jed
me.
Spence. I think he's a very good player.
I think if that's the case, I don't think he's being used correctly, because I just think he gets beat on the regular every time I see it. So that's me. I think he just gets beat out. Pause. But I think they need a 6, probably maybe a left back and something going in up top. But they've got holes all over the gaff.
Yeah, not having a good season, are they, Tottenham? But obviously, yeah, we've spoken about Tottenham, Manchester United, Liverpool. We are, at the end of the day, here to talk about one team and one team only, Chelsea. A month ago, we were very, very excited and, humble, but, looking toward the prospect of a potential title charge. I mean, Man City is still quite far off it. Arsenal are making up ground, but still a little bit off it. Do you think Chelsea are any way we can claw ourselves back this 10 points in the next 19 games, or is our title charge well and truly over? Is our focus now well and truly just on top 4?
I'm going to put it like this, yeah? 47, your target is Mohamed Salah, known football player for Liverpool Football Club. Unless someone calls up Agent 47 and gets that man whacked, I think there's no way that we catch up. I think the way that Liverpool have been playing, the way that they've been scoring goals and looking so dangerous, but then still structure at the back, I think Van Dijk is a little bit back compared to where he was. I still think that he's nowhere near the level that he was being spoken about with the halo and whatnot, but I think that he's definitely back in the room. I think that rush hour double pivot that they play is also understated. It's very, very strong with Endo and Gravenberch. I think that them two do a lot of the dirty work, and particularly Gravenberch as well.
He's having a great season.
Yeah, he's sharp as shit, man. He don't make a foot wrong. He's just like a Caicedo, you know what I mean? And I think that is they're very similar profiles. And I know how important Caicedo's been. So it's the fact that Liverpool have got one of them, I can't imagine what it would be like if, we had a Palmer and a Salah as well as, a Caicedo. And then even if we had a Van Dijk, that might be it. That might be honestly it. Because Palmer being our Salah, and I would say Jackson is better than any other starting attacking option that they have at Liverpool. Gakpo, Darwin, the other one, Luis Diaz. I think Jackson clears all of them, and I think the same about Pedro Neto personally. So I think that if you look at that position for position, you get in a massive centre back in there, someone like a Van Dijk, world class with experience. I don't see why we can't compete, but until I see that and maybe a dip in form in Liverpool, I think the title race is wrapped in December. And bar one season, whoever's top of the league at Christmas usually goes on to win it. I mean, the only outlier being when Tottenham were at the top, but we all knew that wasn't going to happen, and Leicester ended up winning the league that season. So I think that you can maybe put a bow on it.
Christmas.
Oh yeah, and Arsenal, but if it's not North London, they can't do it, mate. They ain't got a clue how to do it afterwards.
We don't take them side seriously anyway. But yeah, obviously, as we've mentioned multiple times in this episode, the transfer window is now officially open. So starting tomorrow, actually, you know what? Starting Friday, you will be getting some transfer live stream. You know what? I might try and tie it in tomorrow. I was going to try and do a Loan Watch episode tomorrow, a special Loan Watch episode, because Chelsea have called back Gaga Slanina as he's still not recovered from a broken finger at Barnsley. Obviously, that Aaron Anselmino news as well, with him being his loan move or his move being called forward to January. So there is a little bit to talk about. We will obviously have, or hopefully have, a Chop It Up with Charms episode for you as well before Chelsea go head-to-head with Crystal Palace on Saturday. Charms, very quickly, looking forward to that game. Is that a game? I mean, another bogey team for Chelsea. Is that a game we can win and get out of this slump, or is that going to be the fourth game in a row that we drop points?
I was going to say, that's usually the team that's the bogey team. So it's a bit of a harsh time to come up against them in this run of form. But I think we will nip it. I think we will nip this bad stretch in the bud. And I think that it will be good to have a side like that we can be like, listen, that was just 2 games. Yeah. The Everton game, whatever. But those last 2, unacceptable. Let's not keep the ball rolling. And I see a cagey start. But once you know, the champagne's popped, it just keeps on flowing. And I reckon it will end it 1-2-0 after a cagey first half. But I think it will be about the second half and how we come back to that, seeing how the substitutes are utilised, and, you know, seeing if we can get as many fresh legs on the pitch as possible and kind of out leg Crystal Palace, I think would be the tactic. So yeah, I got us winning 1-0, 2-1, something close, but you know, not close at the same time.
Clean sheet, that's wishful thinking.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, mate, to be honest. So 2-1 is probably going to be my final, Liam. Let me live.
We'll get the predictions closer to the time. We'll get the predictions on the day. But for now, you know what it is, man. Appreciate you joining. Everyone that supported, everyone that's jumped on this stream. Appreciate you joining. Everyone that supported us in 2024. Love to you. Thank you very much. Continue to do so. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Tell all your friends. Share the stream. Get all your family members. Get this to your nan. Get it down to the care home. Get it round on the what do you call it, on the projector while they play bingo. You know what it is, man. Just listen to us talk shit. They won't be able to hear nothing anyway. You know what it is, man. Support the team. Big up each and every person. Wes, big up yourself. Who else was in the chat? Big up Dougie. Big up yourself. And anybody else that's watching, appreciate you. See you very, very soon. We'll see you tomorrow. 2 Blues over and out.